Hi, everybody. I'm Betsy, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Betsy.
And I'm still floored at that cheer that North Carolina gave us. I know there's more South Carolinians. They're just a little quieter. Right? Anyway, right now we are going to start the meeting with the Serenity Prayer. God, grant us serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Okay, and here is the Alcoholics Anonymous preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help each other to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organizations, or institutions. Does not wish to engage in controversy, neither endorses or opposes any causes. Our primary purpose here is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. Now, I have two special ladies here. We are going to have Heather read our 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Come on up, Heather.
Yay. Woo!
Hello, my name's Heather, and I'm an alcoholic. The 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol and our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over the care of God as we understood Him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact natures of our wrong. 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
Thanks, Heather.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Tracy, and I'm an alcoholic. And these are the 12 traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous. Our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. 2, for our group purpose, there has been one ultimate authority, a loving God as He may express Himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants. They do not govern. Number 3, the only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. 4, each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. Number 5, each group has but one primary purpose, to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. 6, an AA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the AA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. 7, every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. 8, Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. 9, AA as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. Number 10, Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues, hence the AA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. 11, our public relation policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. And 12, anonymity is a spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities.
Okay, Now we're at the point to where we've all been waiting for. We have Paula here tonight to speak. I just met her. We just talked for a little bit, but I can tell she has the most beautiful smile. You can tell her heart is as big as her smile. She is very active in AA. She does service. Everybody speaks very highly of Paula. I'm very honored to have met her. And the most fascinating fact, one of the facts, is that she's from Champaign, Illinois. So, without any further ado, here's Paula.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Hello. My name is Paula P, and I'm an alcoholic. I have just done the most important thing that you'll be the most grateful for, and that is start my timer. You're pretty welcome. I want to thank everybody who put this together. It's a long haul to get to these conferences that got canceled through COVID, and now they're, a lot of them are backed up, and you ran the long marathon, and thank you so much. And I know John got up here and thanked everybody, but how about we thank John? How about that, brother? How about that? Before I jump into this, I want to say the very most important thing about me, and the very most important thing about me is that I have been sober since October 29th, 1979. I took my first drink when I was 14 years old. I took my last drink when I was 17 years old. I turned 59 years old last week, and if I don't drink next month, I'll celebrate 42 years of sobriety. There is no one more shocked by that than am I. Also, before I jump into this, where the timer is, you'll find it's going to be a little tricky. But anyway, oh crap! Now I just ended the whole thing. Oh well, whatever. Deal with it. Start praying for patience right now. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. Why did she do that? Anyway, thank you. So, before I jump into this, I want to just talk for a hot minute about my life now. I'm married to a wonderful man, St. Richard, people in AA call him, which is rude. And we just celebrated 24 years together, and we raised 3 sons and have a nice little home that he, who is not alcoholic by any means and is often stunned at the whirlwind, that is me. We open our house to AA people all the time, and I live in a small town a couple hours south of Chicago, and if you're going through there, you're on your way somewhere else. But if you go through there, you too are welcome at my house. So I'm sponsored by the fabulous Miss Paula P, and she enters a room like a cloud of angels. And the story I always tell about the fabulous Miss P is way before lockdown happened. I don't know, 2017, 2018, I stunningly was asked to speak in Berlin, Germany, at a very small English-speaking conference. So international conferences are very supportive of each other. Every international conference, people come in from all over to support that conference. So they're see each other at these things. They know each other. And so I spoke, and then I'm in the thank you line. And sometimes I'll say Holly's name. Sometimes I won't. I always say I am sponsored. It's an important part of being sober. This time I didn't say her name. I just said my sponsor walks in a room like a cloud of angels. So I'm in the thank you line, and how people say thank you and stuff. And so this man came up to me who was from Berlin, from Brazil. And he says to me, "Is your sponsor Polypistol?" How about that? Yes, how did you tell? But my husband, he's a normal guy, and he sort of enjoys wine and beer. Apparently, they come in different flavors and colors, and in 24 years of being with this man, I have seen him drink one hard drink one time. 3 beers at the same time, 2 times. 2 beers at the same time, 10 times, and that's an accurate count. And just a couple years ago, I don't know what took me so long to think of this question, but we're in the car and we're driving, and I turned to him and I said, "How do you know when to stop?" And he mulls it over and says, because I start to feel it. Like, you just got to push through that. Like, heaven is just beyond those doors, darling. One of the best things that Paula has taught me is this, is that even though we are sober 1 month, 1 day, 1 year, 10 years, however long, that we do have a disease. We do have a disease. We have a medical disease. I'm a scientist, a social scientist, but I'm still going to grab the name. It actually is a medical, scientific disease. What Paula has taught me is that even though we are sober, our disease is still in us. And it's still growing, man. It wants a piece of us at every minute of every day. Why do we know this? How do we know this? And we do know it because if we have gone out and paid the second most ultimate price and picked up that liquid higher power, or if we know someone who has gone out and paid the second most ultimate price and picked up that liquid higher power, they are quickly drinking to the progression and to the consequences as if they had continued to drink the whole time they had been sober. So because we know that our disease is progressive, our recovery has got to be progressive also. I cannot stay sober on last year's spiritual experience, on last year's 4-step. I can't do it. It doesn't happen like that. And also, before I jump into this, which I understand I'm already in it, but judging. But I want to say this, and that is that I grew up in my mom's alcoholic home. You know, I can tell about a lot of perspectives of alcoholism, many different perspectives of alcoholism. As a little kiddo, the youngest of 5 little kiddos in Central California, you know, growing up in my mama's alcoholism with, you know, vodka and coffee, you know. And of course, I can tell you about my own, and you will soon believe that, yes, indeed, I am like you. I am a real alcoholic. And now I have the perspective I never wanted to have. I never thought I could have. I didn't think it was possible. Oddly, crazily, really. I have 3 sons, like I said. I had them far into my sobriety. The first at 13 years sober, the second at 15 years sober, my last son at almost 20 years of sobriety. And I didn't even know these were beliefs in me, but I thought I could parent the hell out of him, that I could love alcoholism away. As if alcoholism is a power great, as if love is a power greater than alcoholism. It is not. Not a mother's love, as deep and primordial as it is, can stave off the master. There's only one power, I'm almost sorry to tell some of you, greater than the power that is greater than us. That is alcoholism. And that is a God of your own understanding, man. Have it be anything. It doesn't matter. You know what my second step was? Maybe. That was it. There it is. You're on the broad highway. And no matter what, God and AA will meet you there, right there. And now my 2 older sons drink like we drank. And my mom got into AA. She did. She died with 20 years of sobriety, and I followed her into the rooms about 2 years later. And, of course, when I got to my 8th and 9th step, I made amends to my mother, you know, of course. She had to watch me in those last months of my drinking, and she said that, literally, sounds dramatic, but on her deathbed, she said what it was like for her those last months when I was living at home because I was still a juvenile, and she'd watch me leave the house, and she'd watch my back. She said every night she'd wonder, she'd ask herself this question, is this the night she won't come home? I'll get that knock on the door. Or is it tomorrow night? So, of course, man, I got to my 8 and 9, and I made amends to my mom, tried to kill her, nice, in first year of sobriety. How lovely is that? I made a homemade flamethrower, and I'm not going to be telling you guys how I did that. So some of you are a little dicey, I'm thinking. I don't know. I mean, I beat her, you know, just lovely things. And but I'll tell you this, you know, my mom is long dead and gone, and it looks like it. Come to the end, watching my boys, I finally know what I did to my mama. Done with that. We'll see. We'll see where God goes. You know, every time I get up, right as I'm being introduced, as I'm standing up, I always do the same thing. I say to the God of my understanding, I grab my God's hand, I say, here we go. Here we go. Like I said, I grew up in my mom's alcoholism, so, you know, I can tell you about that. Many of us can, you know, and isn't it funny that the first step is the only step that has the dash? What is up with that? But if you take that step and you apply that first step to the end of our drinking, or if you drink like me, all my drinking, we admitted we are powerless over alcohol. We are powerless over alcohol. We take the drink takes a drink. And then the dash. And then manageability kicks in. And there is no telling what happens after that dash. And what happens after that dash is the damage and destruction usually falls on the weakest and most vulnerable around us. That's all, man. Just what happens after the dash. We can understand that. And I was the youngest of 5 kiddos, you know, in Central California. My father was wealthy and influential and powerful, and we had the kind of things that go along with a dad like that. We had a maid and a pool man and a gardener, and then the 4 hideous horsemen of alcohol that our big book talks about entered our home and my mama, and one by one I watched all those things go. And one of those things to go is my dad and his money and his power, and then we were poor and hungry with a famous last name. So I am telling you, the hunger was real, but the secret was fierce. And I was little when this all went down, 6-ish, 7, I don't know. I can't really remember, 5, 6, 7. And I was one of those weirdo kids. Every neighborhood has one. I would wander the neighborhood. You know, my hair was matted and I stunk, and the clothes were the wrong kinds of clothes for the seasons. You know, just after the dash. That's all. Just what goes down after the dash. And I would do crazy things. I would always wander in the neighborhood, just walking around the neighborhood. And there's a whole year of my childhood I don't remember, and that's okay, man. God will reveal more or not. And if God reveals more, then God will find a way in God's magic math to turn that into my greatest possession as well. But there's some memories that are vivid, and I've told this story 1,000 times. And as I tell it to you, it's as if I'm standing there right now. I was 5, 6 years old, wandering the neighborhood, and it must have been dinner time because I could see into the neighbor's picture window. And what I saw there struck me still. I'd never seen such a thing. They were sitting at a table together. And they were laughing and looking at each other, and they had different kinds of food at the same time in these pretty bowls, and they take it out of the bowls and they put it on these plates. Man, I had never seen such a thing. And I knew to the tips of my toes, standing across on the far side of that great green grass, that beauty was never for the likes of dirty me. But I am telling you, you were that family in the picture window to me. You found me a place at your banquet. I will never be done paying back my debt to Alcoholics Anonymous, nor do I ever want to be done paying back my debt to Alcoholics Anonymous. I hated 3 things before I took my first drink when I was 14. I hated God because I'd beg God for help. Because, you know, those 4 hideous horsemen our big book talks about: terror, bewilderment, frustration, despair. Only 4? No way. There's 1,004. We can all name more, you know, and my mom is drinking, and I know this. On the day I was born, I know the doctor didn't put me in her arms and she looked down at me and said, you know what, I'm going to trade her to some bad men for another night of drinking. I know she didn't mean to do that. I know she didn't. But you take a drink, the dash happens, bets are off. And that's the kind of stuff, that's the other hideous horseman that entered my mama's home. You know, that's just how that rolls. And I stand before you a free woman, at peace. Because on page 124 that I alluded to before is my favorite part of the whole big book. And it's funny that it's in the family afterward that it says this line I'm about to say. The family afterward, that chapter occurs after we've been through all the 12 steps, through all the promises of the 12 steps. And there's way more promises than just after the 9th step. The 5th step promises are stunning. The 10th step promises are great. And I'm not even going to tell you where to find them. Go look. Go look. It's in the black print. That was arrogant. I sort of apologize. But my favorite part in the big book is that, like I said, it's on page 124, and it says this: cling. Now just think of that word, cling. Like you're in a dark and stormy ocean, man. There is no help to be found. You better hold on with everything you got. It says cling to the thought that in God's hands the dark past is the greatest possession you have. First time I heard that, I'm like, excuse me, did you just say greatest? They're like, yes. Yes, it is. Because you know another way to say our dark past? Language of the heart. Shoulder to shoulder, eyeball to eyeball, knee to knee. I know that you know that I know. I can help you because it saves me and because you may grow up and save my boys. That's how we roll. That's our gig. Like I said, there were 3 things I hated before I took my first drink. My mama had tried to get sober, man, and she couldn't do it in California, so she moved us to Nebraska, which is apparently a state. And which you drink too, right? I mean, seriously. But that's where I found my first love, my first higher power, that liquid golden demon, man, and I was off. And the day before I took my first drink, I hated God, and I hated myself, and I hated alcohol. But I'm going to say the strangest thing you may ever hear, and that is this: alcohol saved my life until it didn't. It's the master thief, the master seducer, the master liar, the master manipulator. Why do we do that? Why do we chase the feeling of that first drink to the gates of insanity and death? It's easy. The answer is easy. Why? We've never felt better. Of course we're going to go back for more. And because alcohol is smarter than we are, it is the master evolver. To call it a disease is the perfect medical name for it. It morphs like a tumor. Perfect. I don't know if that's an analogy or a metaphor. I'm not that smart. But anyway. But alcohol saved my life until it did not. But it told me it was saving my life. As the consequences fell. And I tell you, my mom had been beaten by my daddy and other worse things. I mean, the results of one of those worst things. And I wanted to save my mom. It's all I ever wanted to do, man. But alcohol wiped that out. And she got sober, finally, and she turned to me, her youngest, who, after the dash, the stuff, and she wanted to save just one of her kiddos, and I was the youngest, so she was hoping it could be me, man, but I fell in love with alcohol. I was off, and I was in more trouble than all my siblings. She turned custody of me over to the state of Nebraska. How humiliating. I was always incarcerated in some group home, always in a fight, always expelled, always something, man. And since I was 14 years old, I was court mandated to go to AA meetings since 1976. Can you imagine? In Nebraska. I always wonder why I've never been asked to speak at Cornhusker. I don't know. I think they don't appreciate my humor. But, so I was never all the way sober, who could be, walking into those meetings for 3 years until I actually got sober. I went to meetings for 3 years, and it was a small, tiny town in Nebraska, so it was the same meetings my mama went to, so I knew they knew. She'd go in, Paula tried to kill me again today, Paula screamed at me today, Paula beat me again, and she stole from me, she's in jail again today. Lovely life. So I went in fists raised, man, waiting. Every institution I'd been in, including my own home, there'd been a monster. There'd been some nasty man wanting some nasty things. So I came into these rooms knowing the same thing was going to happen. But in 3 years of going to those meetings, I don't remember a word that was said. But you know what I remember? How they made me feel. I remembered the love. So let's do that. You don't know how to deal with a newcomer. I know they're annoying. I was the most annoying. Sponsees hard, a group member's hard, a group conscience doesn't go your way, a million ways all that goes wrong, or right, or however that goes. Let's do this. Let's give the power of the universe one more minute. What could the power of the universe do with one more minute of love? Let's just do that. Let's let them remember how we made them feel. And I know if you've been around long enough, you've heard again, I don't know if it's analogy or metaphor, but anyway, that whole story about when we're in a meeting, either alcoholism or alcohol's out in the parking lot doing push-ups, right? I mean, it's a great sort of example. Stay vigilant. Stay vigilant. We have a disease that seeks to kill us. Yes, it's great. I think it goes beyond that, though. I think this, when we gossip about one another, when we think that some other group's sacred group conscious is our business, worse, when we think someone's sacred, step 6 and 7, is up to us and our timing, alcoholism is no longer in that parking lot. We have flung our doors wide open and said, come on in, and because we cannot control what happens after that dash, usually it's going to kill somebody we love. It is on us, my sacred duty. Keep the bridge built. Keep the bridge built. You know, if I don't know what to do, you know what I can always do? I can go open up my home group and make some coffee. Best service work, highest service work that is ever can happen in Alcoholics Anonymous. Open up your group, make some coffee. That's how we roll. And I sponsor a lot of women, and, you know, I'm lucky, and Paula calls them my blue ribbon sponsees. Don't tell them I said that, but I just realized this is recorded, but not all of you, I'm just saying. But and I love them. I love them. In many ways, they are the loves of my life. And I love St. Richard, and I love my children, my neighbors. I have a big life in AA, and I got a big life outside of AA. I'm a singer in a rock and roll band. And I manage the band, which you got to, any skills you learned of love and tolerance when you manage a band, got to go. You got to leave them at the door. Because you got a bunch of divas, you got to be, you know, so that's the funnest part, I got to say. But I love so many people desperately, fully, completely. But I need God. And I remember a long time ago, I had a woman who was a professional mentor to me in the beginning of my career, and one time I was up late with her just chatting, and she said this thing. I don't know why it stuck in my head for decades. I'd pull it back out and think about it. Why is that staying with me? What she said is this: we come into this world alone. We leave this world alone. And I'm like, why do I keep thinking about that? And I just realized maybe 4 or 5 years ago, here's why. Because it's true, but there's one exception. We come into this world with God. We leave this world with God. Our primary relationship is with the power of our own understanding. That's all we got to do. I have a ridiculous, stupid, and expensive master's degree. Unemployable in, hold on, medieval British history. Holy Jesus. Medieval British history. Exactly. That's how everybody reacts. But when Game of Thrones was on, I was pretty popular. I'm just saying, but Holly giving me a shout out. Thank you, darling. And there will never be a day, if medieval British history is a goal of yours, that you will open any want ad across the planet and it will say, wanted medieval British historian. Never will it say that. And it was really hard. But anyway, I noticed some things about our disease in studying for that expensive and useless piece of paper and stupid letters. But anyway, I can take you through ancient battles all the time, from Alexander the Great to the beginning of mechanized warfare, and I noticed a funny thing that reminded me of the disease that we carry in us and is outside of us as well. In every one of those battles, man, not one time were they lost on the frontal attack. Not one time did the standing army look to the army in front of them who they had faced before, had spied on, knew all about. Every time those battles were lost, they were lost on the flank, on the sneaky sidelines, by that force that had stayed hidden until just the right second, and it sprung and took down the standing army. I read that and I thought, ooh, there's the land of alcoholism. We are facing a disease we cannot win against in single-handed combat. It cannot be done. ever, not ever. We cannot win against somebody else's disease either in single-handed combat. Yet, we must stay that front line. We cannot falter. So pull on your army boots, adjust your top hats and tiaras. We are going in. And you will find me every time on that front line. I will not falter. I will stand there. I have outside issues. They don't belong in a conference. They don't belong in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm a traditions woman. Buckle up. I'm going there. We're going to float in, and we'll float right back out, and we'll be okay on the other side. I'm only going to do this because Paula does it, and because it might help somebody. I have depression, and I have post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay, we're going to be okay. The only reason I ever bring that up is this. Until I was about 20 years sober, they show they're also, I guess, a power greater than me. I don't control when they come or go. I don't control their intensity. I have tics to this day because of my anxiety disorder. There are tics, so obviously I don't control that. And until I was about 20 years sober, the dark would come, the dark weight would come, and people would come, and I wasn't keeping it a secret. They'd call them, they'd say, "How are you?" I said, "Oh, the dark has come. I'm just going to lay in the bed. I'll see you on the other side." And they'd call, and the anxiety was coming on, man. I was ticking, and they'd say, "How are you?" I said, "Oh, the tics are off the charts. My anxiety is crazy. I'm just going to lay in bed. I'll see you on the other side." And then I was about 20 years sober, and God said this to me: "Hey, you can help somebody." So I got my seriously fat ass out of bed because I can help somebody. The most spiritual, holy words any of us can say in Alcoholics Anonymous are these: anyway and no matter what. Because I will show up. I will show up. And I realize this: dying people don't care if I'm ticking. It is vital, it is life-saving to have a message of depth and weight and foundation. I got sober, like I said, at 17 after a lot of trouble, lots of incarcerations, and I was incarcerated for almost my first 2 years of sobriety. And at the end of my drinking, I was starting to age out of the juvenile system and age into the adult penal system. And, I think I have Tourette's, but so I didn't think that was going to go down very well. It certainly wasn't enough, I'm going to stop drinking because I'm going to get my butt kicked in prison. No, I didn't want it to happen, but it would have happened. I mean, girls like me don't make it out. Girls like me don't make it to 59 years old with bleached blonde hair. Just being honest. And it says attraction, so... I never said that out loud before. Anyway. So, I got sober, and I was a nightmare of a newcomer. I'd come in meetings late on purpose because more people look at you that way. I was showing body parts that should not be seen, the light of day, and because of gravity, that's now an impossibility. I'm just saying, I don't know. But, stop looking, Jesus. But, because here's the gig, man. I know, and I'm happy for you that many of you got sober because you had some kind of near-death experience. Something woke you up that had to do with almost dying, or you would die, or someone you loved died, something like that. Never my deal, never. I was hoping to be done with this breathing thing. That's why alcohol saved my life, man, because I found that, and I knew I could live for that, and I did. But that feeling, just wanted to be done, came right with me to when I got sober at 17. It was with me for some few years. I remember the first time I was 7 years sober, dry. I didn't drink. And I didn't think this big book was for me because I was young and unique. I was going to write my own version. But I wasn't drinking. I was living in AA meetings. I was doing that. And I just want to say this real quick. Stop dissing the fellowship. It was a sufficient substitute. It's not going to save your life at 3 in the morning. It's not going to save somebody's life at 3 in the morning. A message of depth and weight and foundation is what will do that. But the fellowship was a sufficient substitute. And I couldn't until I could crawl to this book because it was the last thing in sight. So that's just another way you guys let me remember how you made me feel. good and welcome. But I remember I was 7 years sober. I was in undergrad, and I was maybe 24 years old, 25 years old. I have a math disability, whatever. But Holly's my math wingman. But I got a bad result, scary result from a doctor's appointment, and they called back. They said, either it was the test was faulted, or it's something scary, and we need you to come back in and retake this test, and in 2 days come on back in. And I hung up the phone, man, and I have this feeling. I mean, I came to you with only two feelings: rage and bafflement. And that's all I could, rage and bafflement. And for a long time in sobriety, that's all I could do. And I hung up the phone from that doctor's appointment, doctor's call, and I had this new feeling. I'm like, it's a feeling. And it took me some days to figure, what is this? What is this? You know what that feeling was? The will to live. You gave me that. I am telling you, man, when I was in my first 2 years of sobriety, I got sober in Sioux City, Iowa. Iowa apparently is another state. And the idiots let me chair a meeting. So I chaired it on the science fiction book I had just read. And two old-timers came up to me after the meeting, and they patted me on the back, and you know what they said, keep coming back. And I swear I thought it's because I had just chaired one hell of a meeting. On my own, I had changed the annals of Alcoholics Anonymous. And you are welcome. And I couldn't do a 4-step until I learned that it may be something like you write about all the people who wronged you. Yes, let's do some of that. I thought it was my autobiography. Jesus. But I'm telling you, man, after I was sober almost 5 horrible years, but I was sober because I lived in AA meetings. I fell in love with the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, man, and I had left Iowa and moved back to Nebraska because my dad had appeared back in my life, and he offered to pay for me to go to undergrad. Now, that was going to be a little bit of a challenge. Here's why. In my second senior year of high school, I had graduated 382nd out of a class of 384. And it's so rude, but they list the rankings with your name and everything. And I remember getting the sheet, and I'm like, I'm not on the first page. And so I get to the end of it, and there I am, number 382. I look down at the names of 383, 384, and I thought, God, they must be dumb. And then you take an ACT to get into, a test to get into college. You can get a 36. I got a 4. Yes, I did. I messed up the line that said name. I wrote ACT, Jesus, people. Just so there was some school back in Nebraska, who took me, and thank God for places like that. And I started undergrad at 4 years of sobriety. I graduated with 8 years of sobriety. I fell in love with academia, triple majored, and I came to you, at 17 years old, a savage girl from a savage place, and more feral than human, with brain damage, and you took me in, man, and because you caught my eye. I don't know why else I stayed, but there was something I saw I'd never seen before. Light and lifting and laughter. Never seen it before. And now I know the name of what I saw was hope. You gave me hope, and I could stay for that. And I was like annoying as hell. Like I said, I'd come in late with my, suede jacket because you're so cool in suede, which is just like cheap leather. I don't know what I was thinking. And like I had tattooed big toes. I gave them to myself. One was the Blue Oyster Cult cross, and the other one was the Rolling Stones mouth with the tongue hanging out. I don't know what I was thinking. It's Iowa. No one sees your toes. It was like, just what did I think? But I'd sit in the back, with my brain damage after having gossiped about everyone, so lovely. And so I'd sit in the back of the room, arms crossed. I was one of those weirdos, man. But I'm telling you, these weirdos are watching you. We're watching what you are doing right the minute you leave the meeting, too. I promise you that. And even though you think we're not listening, we're listening. And I could sit in the back of that room, and I could hear you when you'd quote from the Big Book where it says, deep down inside every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. And I heard you say that. I said, but not for me. God had done me wrong. But because you had been honorable, Not one creepy man did one creepy thing, because I was looking for it because I wanted to not have to be here. I was ready to stop breathing, man. But only because you had been honorable. I could at least believe that you believed. And I could stay for that. And little by slowly, as my friend Cindy says, I could come all the way in the middle of the pack. So I went off to undergrad, and I graduated, did well, all those things, and that was the least of the amazing miracles that happened in that tiny little town back in Nebraska. And one of the amazing things, as I already said, I fell in love with the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, particularly with the 4-step, and most particularly with the 4th column of the 4-step. Because even though I was now sober 4 or 5 years, I still had an organ of hate and self-pity for what had happened to me with those bad men my mama had led into our house when I was a little girl. And I could hear you say, there's a freedom here. You can be free. And because you had been honorable, I could believe that you believed. And you said it was found in this book. And I was desperate for it. Even if I didn't believe it could be for me, you said it. And so I could stumble forward on your word alone because you were honorable. And so I started. And through the years, the beginnings of years of when I do 4 steps straight out of the Big Book, I would get little chinks of freedom, but the organ was still there. A bad enough thing would happen, I'd rage, enraged, always bigger than the thing that was happening, and I knew its source. I knew, The first chink of that kind of freedom came in this, that I realized that thousands of miles from anyone who had hurt me, decades away from anything that had gone down, I, as a grown woman, still allowed what had been done to me to affect who I was and how I reacted on a daily basis. That was on me, and that I could do something about. But that was just the beginning of the beginning. Because we think we have a gift from God. We don't know God's gifts. They go on and on and on. Like a ripple, man, they go on and on and on. Another amazing thing that happened in that little town is this. I was like 4 years sober, 5 years sober, and they had an old-timer named Pat C. He had 32 years of sobriety. And you remember when you had like 4 or 5 years, someone with 32 years, like, damn, it's God, And Pat was amazing. He was sober so long, he worked out of a 2nd edition, and he and his amazing wife, Bess, who was in Al-Anon, would drive me and my little sober friend, who was also like 21 years old like me. She had a couple years of sober. I had like 4 years of sobriety. He'd drive us around these tiny little town Nebraska meetings, where there was only like a church, and the meeting was in the basement. And the only guys in those meetings were old ranchers, old farmers, old railroad men, so you did not be going in there talking about your inner child. No. There's this one old guy, old railroad man, sober 20 years, Bill Hill, and he'd been a football player in college. He's a mean, rough old guy, but everybody's afraid of him. And so sometimes I'd chair the meeting and I'd let him read how it works. The laminated both sides, a lot of meetings have them. So sometimes he'd do this. He'd say, how it works, slowly, very slowly. And he'd put it down and nobody's messing with that guy. But Pat and Bess, Pat was amazing as a kind, good man. And a couple of things about Pat, though. In his very first year of sobriety, he'd gotten in some argument with the local, little recovery clubhouse manager. I know nobody argues with those people anymore. And he could tell you, all those years later what that guy did, and he wouldn't go back to that clubhouse, that kind of thing. And the other thing, I was a historian then in undergrad as well, and it's ridiculous, but like all historians geek out over World War II. It's stupid. That's our thing somehow. It's like we meet there and we go up or back from that point. Anyway, there's a point to this. Pat had been a World War II veteran. And because he knew I understood war and battle, he would tell me horror stories of things he had seen as a veteran, as a soldier at 17, 18 years old on the Western Front of Europe. Stuff I wish weren't in my head. But he'd end every story with this. He'd say, but Paula, there's one thing I'll never tell. I'm like, what the hell could that be? He told me horrible things. What more could it be? And I always wondered, what could that have been? What could that have been? And then me and my little friend graduated undergrad, and we moved to Georgia. We got a call the next year that Pat, with 32 years of sobriety, had started drinking. He was dead in a year. And I got that call, and I put down the phone. I turned to my friend who loved him, too. I said, Pat is drinking. She said, you know what it was? It was that resentment. I said, you know what it was? It was that secret. And now, like I said, I've got my graduate degree in history, and there was research released to us about World War II I wish I had not read, that I wish I did not know. And I was always looking for that thing. What is that thing he would not say? And now I know. I'd bet every dollar that I have, and I would win the bet. That the thing that Pat would not say is not something that he saw. It was something that he did. And the shame, and the hate, and the secret took 32 years to kill such a man. If you think you can hold on to your secret, if you think you don't have to fully disclose, you don't stand a chance. Here's the whole gig on the secrets, man. I know logic says, statistics say, if we tell our secret, we will get freedom. Great, nice, great. That's 10%. The real gig on the whole telling your secrets is your secret will save a life. Think in 32 years all the people Pat could have helped. Don't waste your pain, man. It almost killed you to get it. Don't just throw it away. Work it through this foundation and all the help. Be a seeker. Lift it up to the power of your understanding. In God's amazing physics, the power of the universe will turn it into the very thing that will save a life. Now, I just don't use these stories of my life, this past, my own dark past, my stories in my sobriety in the rooms. Like I said, I got a big life outside of AA too, and my job, I'm in my 11th year. I'm a community organizer in 2 elementary schools in my little town. And what I do is I find mentors. I find grown-ups who will show up, safe and kind grown-ups, who will show up for little kiddos who are falling off the face of the planet. And no one is noticing but me. And in all my programs, my colleagues in other schools who do the same thing as me, they always say to me, how do you find so many kids for your program? But they don't know I got a superpower. Because when I said I was a little kiddo, and after my mom's dash of her alcoholism, I'd wander, my hair was matted, and I smelled what I smelled like was cat urine and gasoline. To this day, when I'm looking for another kid for my program, I walk down the hallways of the elementary school and inhale. And I find them every time. And I only realized a few years ago, I approach those little kiddos kind of the same way I approach a newcomer. Not exactly, but kind of in the same way. The very first thing, the vital thing is this. I get down to their level. Vital. And I can see their faces because I know that face. They're scanning me. Safe or danger, safe or danger. And then I do this thing, I don't even know how I know to do this to this day, but I reach forward and I find some kind of excuse to touch their little faces. I pretend there's something on their little cheeks or their hair's in the way, and that's when I have them. They relax and they go, oh, safe. And I always start with the same words. I say, oh, I'm so glad I found you. Because that's what God does. And I got to say, I got a lot of defects of character, but I am fierce. And those little kiddos are safe with me. And I take them all the way from 3rd grade till they graduate from high school. 200 to this day. One of my other memories from when I was a little girl is so vivid. Somehow I do remember I was 8 years old and I was in bed praying to God, please make it stop. And I woke up the next day, and it hadn't stopped. And my first words were up there, and I said, I hate you. But here's what I know. That the God of my understanding did not abandon me. The God of my understanding was with me crying too. And my God was saying to me, hold on, daughter. I am sending Alcoholics Anonymous. There you will find release from care, boredom, and worry. There you will be rocketed into a 4th dimension of existence. And yes, it is, and yes, I have. But I still, man, even though, if there were an award for 4 steps done perfectly out of the big book, blue ribbon. Blue ribbon. I'm just saying. And of course, when I did as, it's so lovely. When I first fell in love with the big book, I used it as a weapon and would quote it at people. So great. Such a lovely use of life-saving materials. But in successive 4 steps, I was looking for a release from that, that we're going to hate. And I had a vital and effective spiritual experience on the steps of a church in Savannah, Georgia, where I became one. I went in that place one woman, I came out a whole different woman, and I wanted a release from that, that resentment, that self-pity, and I always blamed my mom. If that stuff wouldn't happen, I'd be okay. If that stuff wouldn't happen, I wouldn't be an alcoholic. Just crazy, It's like the blame was a shield, but the shield was turned on me with a weapon on the other side, man. It was stopping me from feeling the whole sunlight of the Spirit, because still, 13 years sober, I remember enough of something would happen, and boom, it was rage, it was darkness, and I knew its source, and I would take it to God in a 6 and 7, and I know step 1, we say, is the only one we do perfectly. We perfectly do not take a drink one day at a time, but I'm telling you, you do a real 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at 6 and 7, you pretty much are perfectly willing. Please remove this. But the timing is up to God. That's the trust. And the line in the big book, in the literature where it says, God is everything or God is nothing, true. But I say it in a different way. It's just more effective for me. I say God is everything or I am. What was my choice to be? And it ain't never me. It's always going to be God. And that's always going to be the answer. God is everything. And with my kiddos on the days that I don't pray and meditate, or I just give it, a short shrift, that kind of thing, and the morbid reflection and the terror for my 2 older sons who drink like we drank, I beg God, please save them. Please, please. But on the days that I meditate and I'm with the power of my understanding, my prayer is this instead, thy will be done. And then it extrapolates to even something smaller, and what I say is thine, thine, thine. And it's all I got. It's all I got. But when I was about 13 years sober, I met a man on the AA campus, uniquely. I think I don't know, I know. I was pregnant in 2 months, married in 4 months. Everybody said don't marry him, so I married him. That's not saying Richard. This is my first husband. So then we just stress the action here. I married him. Okay. So anything after that point, me, ball rolling, started right here. So we were going in to deliver my first son and on no drugs. I was in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous, sponsoring, had a home group, active in AA, and 13 years sober, and I was on no medication. I was in labor for 36 hours and it was not going well. We were both crashing. I had lost too much blood, and my baby was stuck in the birth canal. And they didn't know it, but the cord was wrapped around his neck. So, with every contraction, it was tightening, and One more time, I was on no drugs. The room emptied of the normal doctor, the normal nurses, the normal equipment, and filled with the specialist. And at that moment, I looked to this side of my bed, and walking up to my bed was my grandmother, who had died 10 years before. And my friend Craig, who had died of AIDS 5 months before. And I don't have a word for how they felt. Perfect peace is one small word, but I don't have a word for how they felt. And because I'd lost so much blood, I thought they were there for me, but they weren't there for me. And as I was looking at them, this new nurse I hadn't met, hadn't heard her, didn't know she was there, she leans forward on this side of my bed and she says in this gorgeous Irish brogue, Paula, I'm going to get you through this. And I don't know to this day why I turned my head, but I turned to look at her, and when I turned back, my grandmother and Craig were gone, and she did get me through it, and I delivered my son. And the whole room went silent for a long time. while they worked on him, and after a while they got him breathing. But even I, an inexperienced mother, could tell something was wrong. And for just a second before they took him away in the special equipment, they let me hold my son. I looked down on him and I saw that he was perfect and beautiful. And then, for no reason, out of nowhere, my very next thought were of the men who had hurt me when I was a little girl, and I realized for the first time that they had been perfect and beautiful too. And someone else had turned them into monsters. That there had also been the day of their birth when the doctor placed them in their mother's arms, and she, just like me, looked down at her perfect baby boy and meant with everything she had to keep them safe. But the monster and the liquid demon got in instead and broke those babies, and then they grew and turned for me. Who better than me? Who better than me to have compassion for what must have been done to those babies? And compassion set me free. It sets me free to this day. If someone harms me, I don't really have big deals, much anymore. It's the little deals. Polly says it's not the Mack trucks that get us, it's the butterfly wings. So when somebody's butterfly wings annoy me, the truth is this. Something happened to them. Something went terribly wrong. That was out of their control. They didn't meant or wish to happen. Something happened to harm them. Who better than me? Who better than me to meet them where they're at? To let them remember how I made them feel. My husband and I travel a lot. Sometimes, I travel for AA and sometimes just for fun, but it's not that we're wealthy or anything. It's I have an old couch, an old car. I'd rather go to Paris than buy a couch. It's just how we roll, that's all. Whatever. So, plus we rescue animals. Of course we rescue animals. And, can't have a nice couch when you do that. But one time we were in Prague, Czech Republic, and I was desperate for a meeting. I'd been all picky, like I want a non-smoking meeting, and they have to speak English. So after 2 weeks, which is the longest in my whole sobriety, I went without a meeting. Even St. Richard was saying, let's find you a meeting. So at that point, I was like, smoke, big check, I don't care, just give me to my people. And so, we wandered all over. European streets are not on a grid system, and so we wandered. And my favorite thing to do when I travel is go to meetings, especially out of the country. Favorite thing to do, man. And you will know the language of the heart, man, the music of Alcoholics Anonymous, no matter where you go. And so I found this meeting, one English-speaking meeting in Prague, and I get there a little bit early. And now, Prague, not that long ago, was under the tight regime of the Soviet Republic, with Soviet soldiers wandering the streets with rifles, with machine guns at night, and the tat-tat-tat of those was a regular occurrence in those streets against the Czech people. So I'm just saying that wasn't all that long ago. So I go into this meeting, and there's these two old guys, and I could hear them talking, and they were saying to each other that the Soviet Union allowed Alcoholics Anonymous within its borders before they allowed democracy. Because they followed the traditions. We are here, I'm sorry to say, you might not like this, but we are in the business of saving lives. That's the business we do here. That does not mean we have the power to save lives. We do not have the power to save lives. We have the tools to save lives. My sponsees and I have a Facebook page, which, we just post conferences or if one of us is speaking, little things like that. And sometimes I'll open the Facebook page, I'll say, good morning, ladies, let's go save some lives. Every day, primary purpose. And isn't that funny? That's what our book uses, that word, primary, first purpose. Stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. First, primary purpose. I think I might stop talking pretty soon. Lucky for you. I was trying to say a few more things is this, that when I was about 4 years sober in undergrad, in Nebraska. 2 days before Christmas Eve, my sister, who was an undergrad also, I'm particularly worried about my mascara right now, but I'm just saying. But anyway, attraction. 2 days before Christmas Eve, we decided to drive in my crappy college car all the way across the Great Plains through the Midwest to Washington, D.C. to see another sister for Christmas. And so we take off in my horrible car 2 days before Christmas Eve in the midst of that kind of winter, that kind of winter. We have my little baby niece in the car with me, and just right before we got to Lincoln, Nebraska, a young woman ahead of us had flipped her whole car, and she was all alone. It was before cell phones, so we pull over. The semi-truck driver pulls over. We get her out of the car. Her car's totaled, but she's okay, and my sister and I put her in the back seat with us, calm her down while the semi-truck driver, calls in on his CB radio some help. And it takes a long time, and it's Nebraska. And, come on, Cornhusker, I'll stop if you... Anyway. And so, she's so shook up. And so, the tow truck driver gets there and the, help. And so she gets in the tow truck thing. And just before my sister and I and my little baby niece left, I handed her $20. Like, this was like 1984. And, poor college students. That was a lot of money. My sister was so mad at me. So now we're way behind schedule. And now we're in Iowa. And it's past midnight, so now it's 1 day before Christmas Eve in 0-degree weather, and my sister loves shortcuts, so we're like nowhere. And, even more nowhere than being in Iowa. And, there's no lights, no lines on the road, no town, no signs, no nothing, and my car stops. No heat, no nothing, and we're in some real danger. And my little baby niece is in some real danger. So the plan was I'm going to get out of the car and I'll just guess which way to go, to try to find help. And just at that moment, on the only hill in Iowa, comes these two headlights. And my sister, a relatively stable person, says, "Oh, good, help me." "Oh, no, axe murderer." But it was this farmer dude, and I happened to have duct tape and a wire coat hanger in my car like I was going to kidnap somebody. But, he fixed my engine with those two things, and we went on our way, and we're like, "You saved us. Can we pay you?" He's like, "No, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it." And we're like, "Really, can we pay you?" And here's what he says: "Take it as a present from him." When I was in my first year of sobriety, I was 17, 18 years old. I was in a long-term halfway house, and I was at that point many of us get to, just because you guys had been in the sunlight of the Spirit, Couldn't deny that. So I get to that point in our second step, or many of us do, and I start with a question. Many of us do, and I went to my counselor in the halfway house. I said, "Okay, if there's a God, why did all those bad things happen to me when I was a little girl?" And she said, "Oh, baby, God didn't make those things happen. Faulty and broken human will made those things happen. But now God has given you Alcoholics Anonymous to try to help you mend those things. So I say to you, take it as a present from him." One of the things that happened after the dash, my mom's drinking. It's going to sound pitiful. I don't mean it to. It's just a sum up, I guess. Is I'd have, I'd have little chorus things, little thing, track things or whatever. No one was there. Just see me. It sounds pitiful. I'm just saying that's just a thing. I'm just saying to explain, to get to the point of the story. After a while, I stopped looking up at the audience to see if anybody was there, if my mom was there, because it was worse somehow. People saw that I knew. So I just stopped looking. And so in my little town where I live, there's a huge group home for kiddos who've been taken from their parents because their parents are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And my sponsee started sponsoring a 16-year-old from this group home. And I found out, my sponsee told me, the 16-year-old is going to be in a band performance at the high school. I'm like, "Oh my God, she is?" And she said, "Yeah." I said, "We're going." She goes, "We are?" "Yes, we are." And so we get there late, and we come in the wrong door, and we can see the back of her. I go in the risers of this big gym, and we can see her back. Who else in the entire universe would know what it would mean to her to look up and see people there for her? So we came in the wrong door, and there's this huge crowd of people, so I'm like pushing past them, and I'm saying I'm sorry, but I am not sorry. And I'm getting through them, and I get to the end where if my grand sponsee could look up at just the right angle, she'd see us, you know. And 1 second before the music started, I rudely, and didn't care, yell out her name. She looked up and saw us, and her face. In our literature, in many places, it has phrases like, pain was the touchstone of progress, the price of admission was pain. And I've wondered this, because we cannot say what we know to be in the fourth dimension. No one can say they know what the fourth dimension is. And this thing occurred to me a few years ago, like, what if, I don't know, what if my pain is the price of someone else's admission? Would I pay it? Yes, I would. One time I was speaking, and usually I tell the story of Pat, and that I understand war and battle, and that I have PTSD, and I was in the thank you lines, afterwards, and I was asked to leave the thank you line to hear the secrets of the soldier. Me. Would I pay the price? Yes, I would. I really am going to end. I know I keep promising you that, but I just want to say this, and then I'll stop. My oldest son, the one who was born not breathing, turned to me when he was about 12 years old, and he said, Mom, I'm afraid all the time, and I don't know why. I have never heard a better descriptor of us before we find our liquid higher power. He had been tall and beautiful, funny. And it's an irony that he came into the world strangled, and that's the way I'm afraid he's going to go out. His little brother, who I had when I was 15 years sober, was the golden child, captain of 2 varsity high school sports, editor of the yearbook, and special gifted education, school MC, president of the school, popular, happy. He got a prestigious scholarship to a prestigious university in Chicago where he met the demon. And in all this time, 41 years of being sober, I have never seen this disease take someone down as fast as it took him. One by one, man, I watched all those good things go. He used to go missing in the winter in Chicago. And it's weird, I was hyper-focused on his feet. I'd say he's going to pass out in the snow, lose his feet to hypothermia, and finally a friend in AA said, Paula, losing his feet may save his life. And you can't argue with that. And then, of course, I went to the next place, and I said, but they could die. What if they died? A friend in Al-Anon said, if they die, then you will plan their funeral. That's what good mothers do too. And I use these very final seconds of my little bit of time with you to tell you the story of my sons, though I know it's not my story to tell. But I do because in my drinking and in the beginning of my sobriety, I was convinced that my mother and my sad circumstances had caused my alcoholism. I was sure when I was a little girl that if I could have just had all those things I saw other little girls have, I would be okay. My sons have had all those things. They are not okay. But in the magic math of the power of the universe, I know it could be one of you tonight, standing at the doorway of a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous to say, welcome to my babies. And I know the day is coming when my grandmother will return for me. And on that day, I imagine she'll take me by the hand to introduce me to the God of our ancestors. And there is only one thing that I yearn to hear, that the God of my understanding will lean down, touch me on my face, and say, well done, daughter, you were so brave. Thank you.
Well, everybody,
I could barely speak when she was done, actually. I can't tell you, Paula, what a powerful, heartfelt story you told us. We'll never forget that. So thank you so much. Love you, little girl. We also have a little gift for Paula for being here with us. Give me a hug, baby girl. Okay, all right.
Lon wants to see what he's going to get. So.
We have something different for the guys. You'll be happy about that.
All right.
Okay?
Thank you.
Give us a moment to come on down, and then we'll say the Lord's Prayer, okay?